The world is truly unpredictable. Imagine losing your mother and then make your own best friend marry your father, the very person you once called a sister turning into your greatest enemy. Instead of love, she chooses betrayal. Instead of care, she chooses cruelty. She bullies, starves, and manipulates, convincing your father to despise you and even pushing him to rewrite his will against you. This is not just a story, it is a chilling tale of friendship turned to betrayal, love twisted into greed, and a daughter's painful fight for truth and justice. So sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn as we take you through this unforgettable journey. And if you're new here, kindly subscribe and hit the like button so you won't miss a single powerful story. Amara was the jewel of her father, Chief John. From the moment she was born, her father's world revolved around her. Chief John was not just a billionaire. He was a man admired in society for his calm wisdom, generosity, and spotless reputation. In meetings, men deferred to him. In the community, widows and orphans blessed his name. Yet behind the gates of his vast Banana Island mansion, Chief John was simply a father who adored his little girl. Tragedy struck when Amara was 16. Her mother, the woman who had been the heartbeat of the home, passed away after a brief illness. That night, Amara's life changed forever. She remembered clutching her father's agbada as he stood like a broken giant beside the coffin. Tears streamed down his face. Tears no one in the world thought Chief John could ever shed. He vowed then, with quivering lips, never to remarry. "All my love will now belong to you, Amara," he whispered, holding her as if he feared she would vanish too. And he kept that vow. While others thought money spoiled children, Amara was raised differently. Chief John taught her dignity, humility, and compassion. Despite their wealth, she was not the girl who scorned market women or laughed at drivers' children. She was approachable, warm, and respectful, a reflection of her late mother's gentle soul. By the time she entered the university, she carried herself with quiet grace. Boys chased her, but she was never swayed by riches or empty words. Professors respected her intellect. Students admired her humility. And in her second year, fate led her to FUMI. It happened in the library on a humid afternoon. Amara was searching for a book on African business ethics when she noticed another girl struggling to reach the top shelf. Without hesitation, Amara fetched it for her. "Thank you," the girl smiled, brushing a stray braid from her face. "I'm FUMI." That was the beginning, from study groups to shared meals, late-night hostel talks to walking arm in arm across campus. The two became inseparable. People called them twins, not by blood, but by bond. Where Amara was calm, FUMI was fiery. Where Amara was reserved, FUMI was bold. Yet together, they balanced each other. FUMI came from a modest home, not poor enough to beg, not rich enough to boast. Her father was a retired teacher, her mother a trader. She often joked about envying Amara's life of luxury, but her eyes held no malice, only admiration. Or so Amara thought. By their final year, they were sisters in everything but name. They studied for exams together, dreamed about their futures, and even promised that no matter what happened, they would always stand by each other. But destiny, cruel and cunning, was weaving its threads in silence. One evening, as the sun melted into crimson over the lagoon, Chief John called Amara into his study. His eyes, once so bright, now carried a shadow of loneliness. "Amara," he said softly, "you will soon marry, and this house will be empty. I cannot live alone. I need a companion." The words hit her like thunder. She had grown accustomed to her father being hers alone. The idea of another woman filling her mother's place was painful. That night she wept in silence, fearing her father would forget the vow he made years ago. The next day, in tears, she poured out her heart to FUMI. FUMI listened, her eyes glinting strangely. Then, with a small laugh, she said the words that would twist their destinies forever. "Why don't I marry your father?" Amara blinked, stunned. FUMI leaned forward, her voice honeyed. "Think about it. We're already like sisters. Who else could care for him better than me? You'll never have to worry. I'll protect him, and I'll always protect you." The suggestion seemed wild, yet in her grief and loyalty to her best friend, Amara felt hope. She imagined her father gaining a companion and herself gaining not just a friend, but a sister in truth. She smiled through her tears, never knowing she had just opened the door to her own betrayal. In the quiet corridors of the mansion, where portraits of her late mother hung like silent witnesses, the seeds of tragedy had been sown. The night Fumi made her audacious offer, sleep abandoned Amara. Ceiling shadows stretched into shapes of doubt as the sea breeze tapped the balcony doors. Her mother's portrait, smiling softly in a wrapper of blue and gold, seemed to ask the question Amara had no answer for. "Are you sure?" By morning, she braced herself and went to her father's study. Chief John sat at his old mahogany desk, spectacles low on his nose, turning the pages of a ledger he didn't need to read. Numbers had never troubled him. Loneliness had. He didn't look up when she entered. He sensed his daughter before he saw her, the way fathers do. "Daddy," Amara said, voice barely above a whisper. He removed his glasses. "My moon." She hesitated only a heartbeat, then spoke. If you must remarry, I have someone who truly cares for us. Fumi." The room shrank. The clock ticked louder. Chief John leaned back very slowly, as if resisting a heavy wave. "Fumi, your friend." "Yes," Amar said quickly. "She knows our family. She's kind, dutiful. I trust her." He studied his daughter's face, searching for a trace of the child who had once hidden behind his legs. Instead, he saw a woman trying to protect him. He loved her for it, and feared for her because of it. "I will not speak in riddles," he said at last. "I don't like this." "Why?" Amara's hands tightened around each other. "Because she's young? Because people will talk?" Her voice shook. "Do they matter more than your happiness?" He rose, walked to the window, and drew the curtains aside. Morning flooded the study, palms swaying, guards at attention, the world orderly and predictable, unlike human hearts. "Amara," he said, still facing the light, "good men are ruined by the wrong hands. I cannot pretend I don't see appetite when young people look at an old man's house." "She isn't like that." Amara stepped closer. "Daddy, this was my idea. She only offered because she cares about us." He turned and the lines around his eyes deepened. "Then let me be the selfish one. I will not accept." The no landed like a gavel, but Amara did not leave. Love had taught her courage. "Meet her," she said softly. "Truly meet her. One lunch. If you still dislike it, I will never speak of it again." Chief John considered. He had raised his daughter to be resolute. Now he had to face the consequence of that admirable training. He nodded once. "One lunch then." They held it in the smaller dining room, the one with the low chandelier and the old family photographs. The choice was deliberate. Grandeur dazzles, history tests. Fumi arrived in a simple cream dress that hugged neither waist nor pride. She curtsied, greeted each staff member by name, and asked to help set the table. The chef nearly dropped a spoon. "Sir," she said to Chief John, eyes lowered, "thank you for welcoming me into your home. I came to honor your daughter's invitation." "Nothing more." "Be seated, Mena," he said. Conversation began carefully, like tiptoeing over a sleeping animal. Fumi spoke of school, of dreams that involved charity and women's education. She praised Amara's humility with stories that made the housekeeper smile. She never mentioned money, not once. After the meal, she stood to clear the plates. Chief John stopped her gently. "Guests do not work." She glanced at Amara, then at the old photos on the wall, his late wife's portrait among them, radiating grace. "With respect, sir, I am not here to be entertained. I am here to be known." Chief John's eyes flicked to Amara. "You see?" And yet something in him remained watchful. He had built empires on instincts that rarely failed. There was a moment when Fumi thought no one watched her. Her gaze swept the room, curtains, silver frame, the antique clock, like a quiet appraiser. It lasted barely a second. He filed it away. When she left, he called his oldest friend in council, Barrister ADEMOYE. "Background check," he said simply, quietly. "Family, debts, associates. I want truth without the noise." "And your daughter?" ADEMOYE asked. Chief John exhaled. "She wants this. I need to be certain." 2 days later, he took Amara with him to an outreach he funded in Ajagunle, a health camp where doctors treated the poor. Unannounced, Fumi slipped in through the back and began sorting drugs, tying bandages, wiping children's noses with a steady hand. The coordinator whispered to Chief John, "That one. She works like she grew up carrying whole streets on her head." At noon, a young boy screamed as the nurse cleaned a gash on his knee. Fumi squatted, pressed her forehead gently to his, and told a ridiculous story about a rooster who wore sneakers to escape Sunday pot. The child laughed through tears. Chief John heard that laugh and felt the steel in his suspicions soften. He took Amara aside. "She knows how to be useful." Amara's eyes shone. "I told you." "Usefulness," he said quietly, "is not the same as loyalty." She swallowed. "Then test her, Daddy." He already had. By the week's end, Adeoye's report came in. No debts, no criminal ties, parents respectable, father retired teacher, mother trader, spirited, outspoken, Fumi's grades strong, ambition high, nothing sinister, nothing conclusive. Chief John thanked the barrister and called his head of security, Sewell. "Install additional cameras in the private corridors, discreet." Sewell frowned. "Oga, you expect danger?" "I expect to be ready," Chief John said. That evening he invited Fumi for tea. No entourage, no spectacle. In the quiet of the study, he placed a plain ring box on the table. She didn't reach for it. "This is not a proposal," he said, watching her face. "It is a conversation. You are my daughter's friend." "Yes. And I am an old man who has lost the only woman he promised to love. I made a vow at a graveside. I have not broken it lightly." Fumi's expression softened, perfectly measured. "I would never compete with a memory. If I enter this family, it would be to serve it." "Then understand me," he said. "If we do this, the business remains with me. There will be trustees, prenuptial protections, and a board that answers to no spouse. You would be my companion, not my successor. Is that acceptable?" There, he had drawn the map and placed bright warning signs along every road to greed. Fumi lowered her gaze. "Yes, sir," he added almost carelessly, "and Amara stays at the center. My daughter is not up for negotiation." Fumi smiled, a small flicker that looked like humility. "Of course, Brehiso." Chief John poured the tea and took a long, thoughtful sip. A father's love can be a dangerous kind of blindness. He told himself he was not blind, only cautious, only tired. He thought of quiet meals, of laughter returning to the halls, of Amara's relief. He imagined a house no longer echoing with absence. "Very well," he said finally. "We will proceed." Fumi's shoulders trembled, as if barely containing gratitude. She did not reach for the ring box then either. She only whispered, "Thank you." After she left, Chief John remained alone in the study, listening to the grandfather clock count the terms of the future he had just accepted. He slid the ring box back into the drawer and took out a fountain pen. On a clean sheet, he wrote in his careful hand, "In case of emergency, truth must have a path." Beneath it, he listed names, passwords, and a final instruction for Adeoye. Caution was a habit he could not surrender. In her small rented flat that night, Fumi stood before the mirror, her phone pressed to her ear. The voice on the other end was older, firm, too sure of the world. "So?" the voice asked. He agreed, Fumi said, and for the first time all day her face relaxed into a smile that showed every white edge of triumph. "Good," the voice purred. "Remember what we discussed. Respect buys time. Time buys control." Fumi's smile faded to something colder. She touched the place on her finger where a ring would soon sit and whispered, "I won't fail." Far across the island, Amara stepped onto her balcony and lifted her face to the night, letting salt air wash over her fear. She told the stars what she could not tell her father. "Please let this be love. Please let this be safe." And in the study, Chief John closed his notebook and whispered to the dark, "If I am wrong, may my precautions be wiser than my heart." The wedding was everything the Lagos high society expected it to be. Guests in flamboyant lace and aso ebi flooded the grand hall, snapping pictures beside chandeliers that dripped with crystal. Journalists whispered headlines. "Billionaire Chief John weds daughter's best friend." Amara, dressed in a shimmering gold gown, stood by Fumi's side, smiling through the flashes, convinced that she had done something noble. Chief John himself was gracious but reserved. He smiled for the cameras, cut the cake with dignity, and thanked his guests, But those who knew him well sensed a man stepping carefully across fragile ground. That night, as fireworks blossomed over Banana Island, Amara whispered to Fumi, "We're truly sisters now." Fumi hugged her with a sweetness that glowed like honey. "Forever," she said. But even as the word left her lips, her eyes flickered past Amara toward the man whose empire she now had access to, her new husband. The mask began to slip almost immediately. It was subtle at first. Amara noticed that Fumi no longer lingered in her room for late-night gist. She no longer called her sister in that playful tone that once melted her heart. Instead, she carried herself with a new stiffness, moving about the house like its queen. Amara brushed it off as adjustment. Marriage changes people, she told herself. She's just learning her new role. But the distance grew. Fumi began eating separately, locking herself in Chief John's wing of the mansion. She answered Amara's calls with one-word replies. The friend who once borrowed her clothes now turned her nose up at them, dressing in expensive lace wrappers and diamond-studded blouses, her every step echoing authority. It wasn't long before Amara overheard the truth. One evening, unable to sleep, she wandered into the corridor near her father's study. The door was slightly ajar, and inside, Fumi's mother sat cross-legged, whispering fiercely, "You have entered his house, my daughter. Do not waste time on friendship. Love will not feed you. What matters is control. You must hold his empire in your two hands, or else his daughter will snatch it back when he dies." Amara's heart thudded as she pressed against the wall. "Yes, Mama," Fumi's voice replied. "I understand. There is a man in Mushin, a herbalist. He will give you charms to bind Chief John's heart to yours and turn him against Amara. If the daughter stands in your way, she must fall." Amara gasped silently, her whole body trembling. She wanted to storm in, to shout, but fear chained her tongue. She fled to her room, tears staining her pillow until dawn. The changes followed swiftly. Chief John, once her gentle protector, began scolding Amara for things she had never done. He accused her of neglecting her studies, of wasting money on frivolities, of flirting with men. Each accusation carried the echo of Fumi's tongue. "Daddy, it's not true," she cried one night, kneeling beside him. "You know me, you raised me." But Chief John only shook his head, his eyes clouded. "Your stepmother tells me otherwise. Amara, I want to believe you, but the evidence piles up." Her heart cracked. Stepmother. The word stung like acid. Meanwhile, Fumi played her role flawlessly. She cooked Chief John's favorite meals, massaged his feet, and whispered sweet nothings into his ears. But beneath the perfume of her devotion lay venom. At night, she mixed powders into his drinks. During the day, she handed him documents, coaxing him to sign away pieces of his empire into her management. The board of his company, long loyal to him, began receiving instructions from her. She charmed the staff with smiles, then ruled them with an iron hand. For Amara, life in her father's house turned into humiliation. "Don't touch that food," Fumi snapped one afternoon when Amara reached for a plate of rice. "That's for my husband." "But I'm hungry." "You're not a guest here," Fumi cut her off, her voice dripping with mockery. "And you're not the princess you think you are. This is my house now." The servants, once respectful, began to look at Amara with pity. Some even turned away, unwilling to be caught helping her. Fumi took the cruelty further. One morning she ordered Amara to clean the garden while guests arrived for a meeting. "Make sure you kneel and scrub with your hands. The roses must shine." As Amara bent low in the soil, dirtying the same fingers that once held textbooks and pens, she heard Fumi laugh behind her. Who would believe the daughter of Chief John would end up like this? The world bows to power, Amara, not pity. Chief John saw. He saw everything, the mocking glances, the unnecessary scolding, the gradual isolation of his daughter. But he remained silent, watching from behind his spectacles. To the world, it seemed Fumi had conquered him completely. To Fumi herself, it seemed her victory was absolute. And so, emboldened, she went further. One night, she served Chief John his favorite palm wine, laced with the powder from the herbalist. Amara happened to pass by the door as she heard her father cough violently. She rushed in, but Fumi blocked her path. "Go back to your room," Fumi hissed. Amara tried to push past, but Fumi shoved her back so hard she fell against the wall. When she finally returned to her room, she wept into her hands. The best friend she once trusted more than anyone had become a stranger, a tormentor. What Amara didn't know was that the game had only begun. Fumi's mother was already plotting the final move. The empire must fall into your hands completely, she told her daughter. And for that to happen, Chief John himself must fall. In the glittering silence of the mansion, with its marble floors and golden chandeliers, betrayal had found a home. Fumi's mask had fallen, and what lay beneath was colder than steel. But even as Amara drowned in sorrow, unseen eyes were watching. Hidden in corners of the mansion, Chief John's cameras blinked quietly, capturing every whisper, every lie, every cruel act. The king may have seemed silent, but the game was not over. The rains had come to Lagos that week, heavy and relentless. They pounded on the glass windows of Chief John's mansion, turning the manicured lawns into a swamp of mud and drowned petals. Inside, the house was just as stormy. For Amara, each day was a new humiliation. Fumi had grown bold in her cruelty. The servants who once carried out Amara's orders now sneered when she passed, emboldened by their new mistress. Fumi had ordered Amara to use the back staircase instead of the grand one, to avoid disturbing visitors. She locked the fridge at night, forcing Amara to sneak into the kitchen like a thief to find scraps. Still, Amara endured in silence. Her only hope was her father. But Chief John, bewitched by Fumi's charms and poisoned by her whispers, seemed more distant than ever. "Daddy," she pleaded one evening, kneeling by his chair in the study, "please believe me. I haven't done anything wrong. Fumi, she lies about me. You know me." Chief John rubbed his temples. His once sharp eyes were dulled by confusion and fatigue. "Amara, I don't know what to believe anymore." Her heart broke. She looked at him, at the father who had once been her shield, and felt the distance widening like an ocean. Meanwhile, in Fumi's private chambers, the atmosphere was very different. Her mother sat on the edge of the silk-covered bed, her wrapper tied tightly, her eyes burning with ambition. "You are wasting time," she snapped. "Yes, you've turned him against his daughter, but that is not enough. You must secure the empire before the old man changes his mind." "I'm working on it," Fumi muttered, adjusting the golden bangles on her wrists. "He already signed several documents putting the companies under my management." "That is management," her mother hissed, "not ownership. Management can be taken back. What you need is inheritance. For that, his will must favor you, and the daughter must be powerless." Fumi swallowed. "How do we make sure?" Her mother leaned closer, her voice a poisonous whisper. "We don't wait for him to die naturally. We help him, quietly." A chill ran through Fumi's body. She looked away, but her mother's grip on her hand was iron. "Do you want to live as a servant to that girl forever, or as the queen of this empire? Choose." Fumi nodded, slowly at first, then with conviction. "I will choose the throne." The plan was set in motion. Late one night, her mother took her to the herbalist's shrine in Mushin. The air was thick with the stench of burnt herbs and dried blood. A clay pot bubbled over a fire, and strange symbols lined the mud walls. The herbalist, a gaunt man with eyes like glowing embers, handed Fumi a small pouch of powder. "Sprinkle this into his drink," he croaked. "His heart will weaken, his body will fail. The world will call it sickness, but remember, every poison carries a price. Once begun, it cannot be undone." Fumi's hands trembled as she took the pouch, but her mother's eyes urged her on. "Do it," she said. "This is the path." The next evening, the mansion hosted a small dinner. Amara was not invited. Instead, she watched from the corridor, her stomach empty, her heart heavy, as laughter echoed from the dining room where Fumi and Chief John dined alone. Fumi poured his favorite palm wine into a crystal goblet. With a graceful flick, she let the powder slip into the liquid. It dissolved instantly, leaving no trace. "Drink, my love," she cooed, pushing the glass toward him. Chief John lifted it slowly. His eyes flickered briefly toward the corner of the ceiling, toward the tiny blinking light of a hidden camera no one else noticed. Then, with a faint smile, he raised the glass to his lips. Amara, peeking through the crack in the door, saw it. Her body stiffened. She wanted to scream, to rush in, but her feet were glued to the floor. Her heart pounded as the glass tilted. Chief John drank. The goblet clinked softly on the table. Moments later, he coughed, a violent, rattling sound that shook his frame. His face paled. His hands trembled. "Daddy!" Amara screamed, bursting into the room. "I'm the son." She ran to his side, clutching his arm. But Fumi blocked her path, her voice sharp. "Stay back, you ungrateful child. Can't you see you're disturbing him?" Chief John struggled for breath, his body slumping into the chair. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he pressed a hand to his chest. Amara turned on Fumi, tears streaming down her face. "What have you done to him?" Fumi's eyes hardened. "This is not your concern. Go back to your room." "No," Amara shouted, her voice breaking. "He's my father." But the words fell into a void. Chief John's eyes rolled back, his body convulsed once, and then silence. His hand slipped from Amara's grasp, falling lifelessly to his side. The mansion plunged into chaos. Staff rushed in, gasping at the sight. Fumi wailed dramatically, throwing herself across the floor, crying, "My husband! My love! What cruel fate!" Her mother arrived moments later, her cries even louder. "Oh, death! Why take him now?" But behind her sobs was the glimmer of triumph. Amara knelt beside her father's body, her own cries raw, broken. "Daddy, no. Please don't leave me. You promised never to abandon me." But Chief John's chest no longer rose. The days that followed blurred into morning. Newspapers carried the headline, "Chief John, business icon, dies after sudden illness." High society turned out for the burial, praising the widow's strength and the daughter's quiet grief. But within the mansion, the reality was stark. Fumi walked with her head high, her black lace gown flowing behind her like the robes of a queen. Her mother moved into the house permanently, barking orders at staff. Amara, once the princess of the home, became a prisoner. Food was rationed to her, her bedroom stripped of luxuries, her dignity torn apart piece by piece. She was treated as an intruder in her own father's empire. The final blow came one night when Amara crept to the kitchen, hungry after a day of being denied food. She boiled noodles quietly, praying no one would notice. But Fumi did. She dragged Amara by the hair into the garden, the moon casting cold light over the scene. With a cruel smile, she tore at Amara's clothes and forced her to kneel in the dirt. "You once had everything," Fumi spat. "But now you're nothing. Tomorrow, when the will is read, I will throw you into the streets where you belong." Amara sobbed, clutching the hem of her torn dress. "Fumi, please, remember who we were. We were sisters, friends. Please." Fumi leaned close, her breath hot against Amara's ear. "That was then. This is now, and now I am in control." She pushed Amara to the ground and walked away, her laughter echoing through the garden like the hiss of a snake. That night, as Amara lay on her bed, bruised and broken, she whispered into the darkness, "Daddy, where are you? Why did you leave me?" But somewhere in the quiet of the study where hidden cameras blinked unseen, the truth was already waiting. Chief John's death was not the end. It was only the beginning. The mansion had become a cage for Amara. Every corner that once whispered of her childhood joy now mocked her with silence. The marble staircase where her father once carried her on his shoulders was forbidden to her. Fumi had commanded she use the servants' staircase at the back. The dining hall where her father had laughed over steaming bowls of egusi was now a throne room where Fumi sat at the head of the table, issuing commands like a queen. To Amara, the house was no longer home. It was a battlefield where she was losing every war. The hunger of betrayal. Her humiliation reached its cruel peak the week after the burial. Amara, drained from grief, went to the kitchen in search of food. She found only a pack of noodles. With trembling hands, she boiled water and dropped the strands in, praying no one would notice. But Fumi noticed. She stormed into the kitchen, her mother behind her, and slapped the plate from Amara's hands. The noodles spilled across the tiles like a broken offering. "How dare you steal my food?" Fumi's voice was a whip. Amara froze. "Steal? It's the house kitchen. I was hungry." "Shut up," Fumi shrieked, her eyes blazing. "This is my house. Nothing here belongs to you anymore." Her mother added with a sneer, "Even rats know their place. Why can't you?" Before Amara could reply, Fumi grabbed her by the arm and dragged her outside into the garden. The guards looked away. None dared to interfere. Under the bright, merciless sun, Fumi shoved her to her knees. The public shaming. Look at you, Fumi spat, circling her like a predator. In school you were the golden girl. Everyone admired you because you had a rich father. You strutted around with your nose in the air while her voice cracked with venom. I was just the girl from a modest home. Do you know how it felt to always be compared to you? Amara's tears spilled as she shook her head. No, Fumi. You were my friend, my sister. I never looked down on you. Liar! Fumi slapped her across the face. You pitied me. Do you think I didn't see it in your eyes? Pity. But look who is pitying who now. She ripped at Amara's dress, tearing the delicate fabric until it hung in shreds. Kneel lower, she ordered. Kneel like the beggar you are. Amara knelt, trembling, her knees digging into the gravel. She lifted her eyes, filled with tears, and whispered, Please, Fumi, remember what we had. Remember the nights in school, the laughter, the promises. Don't do this. Don't throw it all away. Fumi crouched before her, their faces inches apart. For a fleeting moment, Amara searched her eyes for the friend she once knew. But what she saw was darker, hardened by greed, sharpened by envy. That girl you knew is dead, Fumi said coldly, and if you're not careful, you'll join her. The next morning, Amara was watering the flowers, her tattered dress sticking to her thin frame. Her fingers, once manicured, were caked in mud. She had barely eaten in days, her once radiant face now pale and gaunt. From the balcony, Fumi and her mother watched her. She looks like a maid, her mother laughed. That's all she deserves, Fumi replied. But tomorrow I will end this charade. Once the will is read, she will be out of this house forever. The streets will be her bed, and the gutters her inheritance. They laughed together, their voices carrying across the compound. Amara heard them. Each word pierced her like a blade, but she remained silent, her eyes fixed on the soil as though she could bury her pain with the roots of the roses. That night she sat alone in her room, the darkness pressing down on her. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. All my love will now belong to you, Amara. She clutched his old wristwatch, the only thing of his she still had, and whispered, Daddy, they've taken everything from me. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. But please don't let them erase me. Don't let them erase us. Morning dawned with unusual stillness. The air was heavy, as though the mansion itself anticipated something monumental. The staff were restless, whispering about the will reading. Fumi strutted through the halls in an expensive black gown, her head held high, her mother trailing behind her like a shadow of greed. Amara, dressed in a plain, faded gown, stood by the window, her stomach hollow but her heart strangely steady. She remembered Fumi's words in the garden. Tomorrow, after the will is read, you'll be homeless. Yes, tomorrow had come, but so had justice, though none of them knew it yet. For in Chief John's study, locked inside a briefcase carried by his lawyer, was a truth that would shatter Fumi's illusion of power and turn the mansion into a stage of reckoning. The morning of the will reading dawned heavy with tension. The sky above Lagos was unusually gray, as though even the heavens held their breath for what was to come. Inside Chief John's mansion, the air was thick with whispers. The staff moved restlessly, not knowing whose orders to follow anymore. Should they bow to Amara, the daughter they had once revered? Or to Fumi, the new mistress who barked commands like a queen? No one dared to choose. The grand hall was prepared, its chandeliers blazing, the polished marble floor reflecting nervous faces. A long mahogany table stretched across the center, upon which lay a single leather briefcase, the container of Chief John's final words. The lawyer, Barrister ADEMOYE, sat calmly at the head of the table. A man in his 60s with sharp glasses and a reputation for integrity, he had been Chief John's friend for decades. His fingers rested on the briefcase, his face unreadable. Around him gathered the family. Amara entered first, dressed in a simple gown that clung loosely to her frame. Grief had hollowed her cheeks, but her eyes, though rimmed with tears, still held a quiet dignity. She sat quietly, folding her hands in her lap, whispering a silent prayer. Then came Fumi, sweeping into the room like a queen arriving for coronation. She wore a fitted black gown embroidered with silver threads, her hair wrapped high in geal. Diamonds sparkled on her ears, and her lips curved with smugness. Beside her, her mother strutted proudly, already picturing the wealth soon to be theirs. "Let's get this over with," Fumi said, her voice carrying a note of impatience. She sat directly opposite Amara, shooting her a cold, triumphant smile. Amara lowered her gaze, her heart pounding. Barrister Adeoye cleared his throat. The chatter silenced. "We are gathered here to read the last will and testament of the late Chief John Chukwudi. May his soul rest in peace. As per his instructions, I will read his words exactly as they were given to me." The air grew heavier. Fumi leaned back in her chair, already imagining the empire transferring into her hands. The lawyer unfolded the papers and began. "To my dear wife, Fumi, thank you for choosing to marry an old man like me and being with me until my death." Fumi's lips curled upward, and her mother squeezed her hand in excitement. The words were exactly as they had hoped. Amara felt her heart sink. The lawyer continued, "Fumi, you have spoken many things about my daughter, Amara. You told me she was wasteful, irresponsible, and immoral. You painted her to me as someone unworthy of my trust. Those words weighed heavily on me. They made me consider altering the destiny of my estate." Fumi leaned forward, her smile widening. She could almost taste victory. Barrister Adeoye adjusted his glasses and went on. "Therefore I, Chief John Chukwudi, in full clarity of mind and body, do hereby declare the fate of my estate, my mansion in Banana Island, my companies in Nigeria and Ghana, my estates in London and the UAE, my factories in India, every account and every asset I own. I leave them all, in totality, to the one person I love more than life itself." The pause that followed was suffocating. Fumi's chest rose in anticipation. Her mother gripped her arm tightly. The lawyer's voice dropped, deliberate and clear. "To my daughter, Amara." The hall erupted. Gasps filled the air. Amara froze, her lips parting in disbelief. Tears welled in her eyes, but she was too stunned to speak. Fumi shot to her feet, her chair screeching across the marble. "What?" she screamed. "That's not possible. He promised me. He told me." Her mother shouted too. "This is a lie. This will is fake." "Sit down," Barrister Adeoye said firmly, his voice like steel. "I am not done." Fumi's chest heaved, but she remained standing, trembling with rage. The lawyer continued, "To my daughter Amara, I apologize for ever doubting you. I allowed lies to cloud my judgment, and I failed you when you needed me most. Forgive me, my daughter. Know that even in death, I love you." Amara broke into moss, clutching her chest. "Daddy," she whispered. The lawyer raised his hand. "There is still one more section." The hall quieted. Fumi's breath came in ragged bursts. The lawyer's voice deepened as he read the final words. "And to my wife, Fumi, I leave you nothing. You came into my life under the guise of love, but your actions revealed your true nature. You poisoned my cup. Yes, I am aware. The cameras in this mansion recorded every act. The powders, the whispers, the deceit. Every lie you told me about Amara, I knew. I played along because I wanted the world to see you for what you are." The entire hall froze. Fumi's knees buckled. No, that's not true. He couldn't have known." But Barrister Adeoye produced a flash drive from the briefcase. "Chief John gave me this before his death. CCTV recordings of every step you took. The evidence is here, in my custody, and copies have already been delivered to the authorities." At that moment, heavy boots thundered into the hall. Police officers entered, their guns at the ready. "Fumi Chukwudi, you are under arrest for the attempted murder of Chief John Chukwudi and for conspiracy with your mother to defraud his estate," the lead officer declared. Handcuffs clicked around Fumi's wrists. She fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. "No, Amara, please help me. I didn't mean it. I swear. Mama forced me. I thought I could handle it. Please forgive me." Her mother, too, was dragged forward, kicking and wailing. "It wasn't us. We were only trying to survive. Don't take us away." But their cries fell on deaf ears. The officers marched them toward the door, their shrieks echoing down the marble halls like the last cries of fallen queens. Amara sat frozen, her tears streaming. She could barely comprehend it. Her best friend, her sister, had tried to destroy her, had killed her father, and now was being dragged to prison. As Fumi was pulled out, she looked back one last time, her eyes swollen and red locked onto Amara's. "Please forgive me." Amara's lips trembled. "You killed him, Fumi. You killed the only man who loved me. How can I forgive that?" The words landed like stones. Fumi's face crumpled, and she was shoved into the waiting van outside. The hall emptied slowly. Staff members whispered, stunned at the revelation. Some stole glances at Amara, their eyes filled with a mix of pity and awe. She sat still at the table, clutching the wristwatch her father had left her tears falling silently onto the mahogany surface. Barrister ADEMOYE closed the briefcase gently. He looked at her with soft eyes. "Your father loved you, Amara. Even when it seemed he didn't, he never stopped protecting you. This was his plan, to expose the truth and keep you safe." Amara nodded weakly. She rose, her steps unsteady, and left the hall. Outside, the rain had returned, but she walked into it, lifting her face to the sky. She whispered softly, "Daddy, I thought you abandoned me, but you never did. You were with me to the end. I love you." And for the first time in weeks, she felt the faintest warmth of peace. The trial began within weeks. Lagos buzzed with whispers. Newspapers carried headlines daily. Billionaire's young widow accused of poisoning. Best friend turned stepmother in court drama. Chief John's will exposes murder plot. In every corner of society, from market stalls to corporate boardrooms, tongues wagged. Some pitied Amara, others were shocked at the audacity of Fumi, but all waited to see how justice would be served. The federal high court was packed on the morning of the hearing. Rows of journalists scribbled furiously as cameras flashed. Barrister ADEMOYE sat calm, his papers neatly arranged, while Amara, dressed in plain white lace, sat silently at the back. She wanted no spotlight. She only wanted her father's name cleared and peace restored to his memory. Then Fumi entered, shackled between two officers. Her once regal beauty was dulled. The diamonds were gone, replaced by a faded prison uniform. Her face was swollen from sleepless nights, her eyes darting around the courtroom with desperation. Beside her, her mother shuffled in, equally broken, wrapped in a worn wrapper, her defiance replaced by exhaustion. When the charges were read, murder by poisoning, conspiracy to defraud, manipulation of inheritance, the air in the courtroom thickened. Fumi wept openly. "I didn't mean to kill him. I was confused. My mother forced me." But the prosecution was relentless. They played the CCTV footage for all to see. Gasps filled the courtroom as the grainy video showed Fumi sprinkling powder into Chief John's drink, her eyes darting toward the door before sliding the cup to him. "Is this you or not?" the prosecutor demanded. Fumi buried her face in her palms. "Yes, it's me. But I loved him. I swear I loved him." Her mother shouted from the dock, "It was my idea. Don't blame her. I pushed her into it." But it was too late. The evidence was overwhelming. The recordings, the herbalist testimony, the signed documents showing attempts to transfer wealth, and Amara's own tearful witness statement of how she had been mistreated. The verdict, when the judge finally returned with the verdict, the hall was silent enough to hear a pin drop. "Fumi Chukwudi, you are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment for the crime of murder by poisoning and for conspiracy to defraud the estate of the late Chief John Chukwudi." The gavel struck like thunder. Fumi collapsed, screaming, "No, please, Amara, help me. I was your friend, your sister. Forgive me." Her cries echoed as she was dragged from the courtroom, her wrists bound tightly in chains. Her mother's sentencing followed swiftly, 25 years in prison for complicity in aiding the crime. The older woman wailed as she was led away, her once proud voice reduced to broken sobs. Amara sat still, tears streaming silently down her face. She felt no triumph, no joy in their downfall, only a deep ache in her chest. The visit to the grave, weeks later, after the noise of the trial died down and the media frenzy turned to other scandals, Amara found herself standing at her father's grave. The cemetery was quiet, the wind rustling through the tall grasses. She wore a simple gown, her hair tied back, her face bare. In her hand, she held a small bouquet of white lilies. her father's favorite flower. She knelt before the marble headstone that read, Chief John Chukwudi, beloved father, husband, and visionary. Her fingers traced the carved letters as tears blurred her sight. Daddy, she whispered, her voice trembling. I thought you abandoned me. When you turned away from me, when you believed Fumi's lies, I thought you had stopped loving me. I felt alone, but now I know. You never left me. Even in death, you protected me. You gave me back my dignity. You gave me justice. Her sobs came in waves, raw and uncontrollable. She pressed the flowers to the grave and bowed her head. I forgive you for doubting me, and I forgive myself for trusting the wrong person. But Daddy, my heart still breaks. I lost my best friend, and I lost you. Nothing can fill that emptiness. For a long while, she knelt there, the wind wrapping around her like her father's unseen embrace. The transformation. Life slowly began to take a new shape. With the estate and companies in her name, Amara inherited not just wealth but responsibility. She appointed loyal managers to run the businesses, just as her father had advised in his final letters. She continued his charities, funding hospitals, scholarships, and orphanages. But she lived simply, refusing to let the empire consume her spirit. She never wore her inheritance like a crown. Instead, she carried it like a burden she must honor. Her mansion, once filled with betrayal, she opened to the less fortunate. Children played in the gardens where she once knelt in humiliation, their laughter filling the air like healing balm. And yet, even amid her new life, she never forgot the lesson burned into her soul. Betrayal does not always come from enemies. It can come from the ones you call sister. The Mambre Gabi, one evening as the sun dipped low, Amara returned to the grave once more. The sky was painted in hues of crimson and gold. She stood quietly, her hands clasped, her tears falling softly. Daddy, she said, her voice steady now, I will be okay. I promise you. I will carry your name with honor. I will not let bitterness define me. But I will never forget, and I will never stop loving you. She placed her hand over her heart. Rest well. Daddy loves you. And as she walked away, the setting sun cast a warm glow across the grave, as though Chief John himself was smiling down, proud of the daughter who had endured the fire and emerged with dignity intact. In the women's prison, Fumi sat on her bunk, her once beautiful face hardened by regret. She replayed the past in her mind, the laughter with Amara in school, the nights of shared secrets, the vows of sisterhood. All ashes now. Sometimes in the stillness of night, she whispered Amara's name, begging forgiveness into the darkness. But forgiveness never came. Not from the world, not from her lost best friend, not from herself. Greed had bought her a mansion, but its true cost was her freedom, her soul, and the only friendship she ever had. Closing line. Amara had lost her father, her best friend, and her innocence. But she had gained justice, resilience, and a legacy of love. In the end, her tears at her father's grave were not only of sorrow, but of strength. Tears that promised she would live on, not as a victim of betrayal, but as the daughter her father had always believed she could be. Moral of the story: greed and betrayal always end in destruction, no matter how cleverly they are hidden. True wealth is not found in possessions, but in love, loyalty, and integrity. Fumi's hunger for power cost her freedom, her dignity, and the very friendship she once had. Amara's endurance proves that even in the darkest storms, truth and justice will always prevail. Trust should never be given blindly, and betrayal, though painful, cannot erase the protection of a loving parent's legacy. We hope you enjoyed this powerful story. Please share your thoughts and lessons in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget, another inspiring and educative story will be premiering in just a few days. So make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to be the first to watch. If this story touched your heart, kindly give it a thumbs up and share it with your family and friends. Thank you so much for watching, and may God richly bless you.